as you all know, I absolutely love talking about everybody else but myself. We are live on Facebook, so hi to everybody out there. Like us and follow us. We're going to share the show later on. Right now, I am excited about bringing on my first guest, who's Tiffany Phelan, and she is the owner of Senior Helpers. You have not been here for a while. So what's been going on in your world?
No, I used to see you every single month for a really long time. And what's been going on in my world? Well, I haven't been coming in because I have been caring for my own senior. My dad has, for about the last 6 months, from about July of last year through January of this year, he was going through a pretty difficult phase in his dementia disease, and unfortunately he passed in January. But I was sort of,
so sorry.
Thank you, I was sort of dedicated to him in that time, so I was trying not to take on anything that took me out of his immediate area.
Here I am going, what's going on, what's going on? Okay, well, so I am so sorry, but one of the things that makes you so great is you walk in people's shoes. You know what they're dealing with. You've been taking care of your mother. I know you have other fathers as well, but anyway, but the point is that you understand them so well, the people that you work with.
I do. I've been doing this for 23 years. We have been sending caregivers into people's homes to help seniors in the community age gracefully and safely at home or wherever it is they're living and want to live out the rest of their days. And during that time, I have had two very close to me experiences. I've had my mom, who ended up living with me for 5 years and then at a facility for 1 year before she passed. And then my dad, who, just to make it a little more fun and exciting in my life, they weren't married, so it was two separate people at two separate places. My dad, who lived in a little condo that we owned near our house, and then he needed his own set of care. So I've gone through it twice, once with my mom with a neurological disorder and with my dad with dementia.
So what we want to do is say something that you have said before. You cannot fix what you cannot fix. Let's talk about it.
You cannot fix what you cannot face.
What you cannot face.
You cannot face. And
wow,
so,
I even like that better.
Yeah, so this is something I've been talking a lot about. I do a lot of presentations, a lot of trainings in the community, all related to senior care. And one of the challenges that I know I've walked into is sometimes not everyone in the family is on board with exactly what's going on. And
You're kidding!
So you have, let's say you have two siblings whose parents need assistance, and one of them thinks, yeah, they definitely need help. I've been with them to the doctor, and I've heard what they have to say. And maybe the other one lives in another state and calls in every so often and says, well, they seem fine to me. I don't think we need to do that yet. So maybe it's that situation, or maybe one of the mom or the dad is ill and the other spouse doesn't agree with the child that's something that they need more help. So whatever it is, if everyone's not on the same page, it's really hard to move forward if you don't know what direction the car is going. So that's something I've been talking to them about, is we really need to dig into what's going on, and before we agree about what we're going to do about it, we have to agree what it is.
And you also have to understand what you do. Okay, so I want you to talk a little bit about Senior Helpers and how you can help the person who is the most important one there that really would like to stay at home as much and or as long as possible.
Absolutely. So we live, especially here in Arizona, we live in a community with a lot of aging seniors. It's pretty much our only guarantee, right? And so we're lucky if we get the opportunity to age. And as we age, we find ourselves not being able to do quite as much as we used to be able to do. And then as we come into our senior years, there might be certain things we really can no longer do at all. So it might be driving. Some folks have really chronic conditions that prevent them from being able to do all their activities around the house, maybe taking showers, maybe dementia. They can't live alone anymore. Mm-hmm. So what Senior Helpers does is we are very flexible. This is a completely one-on-one care, so it can be modeled exactly to what our clients are looking for. And we can do anything from bathing and dressing assistance. We can do grocery shopping and meal preparation. We take our clients to their hair appointments or the doctor. Pretty much anything they need to be able to stay at home that they can no longer do on their own, or maybe that if they did those things on their own, and here's the real trick, Some folks can do them on their own, and then they're exhausted for the rest of the day. Going to the grocery store is it. That's all we can do. That's where my mother-in-law is right now.
I'd be the same.
Yep. Hey, I feel that some days.
Yeah.
So anyway, our job is to hire caring people who want to give back to their community, and we make sure that they're well trained in the different disease processes and the different kinds of care that they can give, and then we place them. We try to make our matches based on skill set, on personality. All of our caregivers are background checked. They're all trained, and our goal is to get these, I'd say, kind of semi-permanent matches where our clients get to know their caregiver, because if you need to take a shower, it's nicer to do that with somebody you know than some person who just walked in for the first time. So we want to build those relationships to make life better for our clients.
Now, before we go to a break, I really want to get out some information. Number one, you are 5-star rated everywhere. Okay, and I want people to understand that how they work is they're going to come in, you're doing an assessment.
We do an assessment totally
Okay.
free of charge,
Mm-hmm.
and our goal during the assessment is to get everybody on the same page and then open up that conversation, oftentimes between adult children and their family members or their loved ones, and really open up that conversation to, well, what are we going to do? Maybe you just need a little bit of help. But do you want to live at home? Is that the right answer for you? And really start having that conversation. But that assessment is free of charge.
So they're valley-wide, and you write this number down, because one thing I know is that a lot of times people wait. They don't know when to do this, which we're going to talk about. The phone number is 480-360-4141. The website is seniorhelpers.com. 5-star rated everywhere. You're going to know why. First of all, Tiffany, I think what I love about you is I've 23 years that you have been doing this, walking in their shoes. You do seminars. You talk about this all the time. People, you're lucky to be able to have her on your team. You know, that's what I think about, how I see it.
Thank you. Well, you know what? I love what I do. I'm very blessed that my entire career has been spent doing something that I really care about, and I've been able to educate myself. I'm always learning new things, and we're trying to be the best that we can possibly be in our industry. We are trying to bring the best advancements, the things that we have, to make our seniors' lives better.
It's all about quality of life.
Quality of life.
And you know what do they all say when you really talk to them? What do they want? They want to stay home.
Most people want to stay home. Most people want to go back to doing some of the things they used to love to do before their entire life became about medical appointments and trying to do some of those basic household chores, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what we're trying to give back, a quality of life. So their last years, let's call it the last chapter, is spent doing all the stuff they enjoy.
It's one-on-one care, and their phone number is 480-360-4141. Valley-wide, 5-star rated everywhere. They do free assessments, and the website is seniorhelpers.com. When is the right time to call?
I always say call early. Oftentimes folks call us when the tragedy has occurred, when the crisis is already in full swing. But I always say educate yourself and just start that conversation. And when we come back, I want to talk about that. Sometimes starting the conversation is the hardest thing. I bet you have listeners right now who are thinking, boy, yeah, I really need to have this conversation. I have absolutely no idea what words should be coming out of my mouth to start.
You know what? It's the hardest conversation you can have, because the parents are going to turn around and say, you're not going to tell me what to do. So you need to have somebody there that can help you with what the right words are. We're going to go to a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk further. Again, 5-star rated everywhere. They do free assessments. It's 480-360-4141. It's seniorhelpers.com. Hang tight. We'll be back in just a minute. We're still live in the room.
Yep.
So we're going to keep on talking. Difference between the 30 and the 15. So, with what we were just talking about, being that is the hardest conversation that you can have with your parents, what do you think is the common denominator, let's say, that always comes up for let's say, either side?
The common denominator is the senior, unless they have advanced dementia, and even then sometimes, everyone wants to feel they're in the driver's seat, right, of their own life. And so one of the challenges that adult children have is that they're doing this little balancing act where it used to be, right, 20 years ago, mom and dad are making their decisions, and then we're just supporting them, you know, or maybe sometimes we're not. I mean, we don't agree with our parents with everything they do. But as time moves on, sometimes we really need to help them make those decisions, help them realize that we're not giving up independence, we're actually promoting independence by having some help, even if the help is not home care, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We're really promoting independence and promoting the goal of being able to stay home as long as we wish.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's what they want. They think they can, they don't know what their abilities are. They have, you know, I know for me, myself, as I get older, I will think that I can do something. Maybe it is just even washing the dishes and what have you, and I really, or maybe I get too tired. Maybe I don't want to slip and fall because I might not have my, you know, I don't have my balance, right? But you still want to be home. You still can be home. That's not something that's going to put you in an assisted living situation. But you need that help. Or you don't have anybody that can maybe take you to, you know, maybe you don't have children. You know?
We see a lot of that, and
I bet.
not that they don't have children. This is the more common one, is we live in a retirement community. So a lot of people's children are still in North Dakota.
Yeah.
Right? They can't,
Right.
They'll come down for a little while in the winter because who doesn't want to come here in the winter? But they're not coming in the summer unless it's absolutely mandatory,
Right.
and people don't want to move back to all the snow.
They work somewhere, they're living different lives, and it's so different. But when it gets to this stage in life, I think things kind of come together, right?
Mhm.
Like in a way of a synergy, if you want to say, because we all get old, and we all.
If we're lucky.
Well, I would say that too. Thank you for bringing that up. But I think that what happens when we get old, most of us, especially if we have, you know, most of our, I would say our wits or what have
Faculties.
you, faculties about us, where do you think we want to be? Home
Most
sweet
people
home.
want to be wherever they are currently living. Some people, that's assisted living and they need more help. They bring us in for that. Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that for a second. So welcome back, everyone. We're talking with Tiffany Phelan. She is the owner of Senior Helpers, and we're talking about seniors that, you know, they do want to stay in their homes. We've been talking about different stages. Let's talk a little bit about what we were mentioning at the break to Facebook land out there, and then we want to go into some of the other things you want to talk about. Go ahead.
Sure. So we were talking about what does it really take to be able to stay at home, and how do you have some of those really difficult conversations? How do you start that conversation? Do you say, hey, Mom, I watched you drive and you are very bad. Right, that's probably going to go over really, really poorly. Is that what we say? How do we start it? So
The problem is that's probably what you say, and you make the situation worse.
well, right. That is, sometimes we get frustrated and we're
Exactly.
just listen to what I have to say. So that's where, in the last 8 years, we've used a new assessment tool. And I think this has really helped a lot of families. So we call it the Life Profile, and it was developed through 20 years of research that involved all the hospitals in the Houston area, all helping to give data on what was happening to their patients in the days, the weeks, and the months before their hospitalization, because that's what we're trying to avoid. And so this tool breaks down, let's just say, the reality of the situation in any home into 5 categories. We look at safety, we look at the way they manage their medical condition, we look at their autonomy. Autonomy, we might call that independence, but it really doesn't matter if the client or the senior themselves is paying their bills or their daughter is paying their bills. If their bills are being paid, then they're autonomous in that area. So we're looking at those 13 areas of autonomy. And then we're looking at 2 really interesting areas, which is burden of care and quality of life. And we were just mentioning that very often when you have 2 spouses, and one is, let's call them the well spouse, and then the not well spouse, oftentimes the well spouse is the one that winds up in the hospital because they're doing so much, they're duty bound, right? We took an oath, we took a vow till the end. And so a lot of times you find people who are very duty bound, to provide this care, and then they essentially work themselves into winding up in the hospital. So we look at that burden of care and what's the likelihood that'll happen, and then we look at quality of life. And while this is the fifth thing I mentioned of 5, I would say it may be the most important thing, because I bet you have listeners out there who are thinking to themselves, my mom never does anything I want her to do. Well, or maybe I'm just thinking that.
Or if I mention it, she doesn't want to do it.
If I mention it. So the real question becomes, what makes people want to do things that are good for them, right? Because ultimately having the right level of care is good for you. And so what makes people want to do that? And I would argue after 23 years that quality of life plays a huge role. If all we're doing is sitting at home all day long, all week long, watching Blue Bloods, not that there's anything wrong with Blue Bloods, but 40 hours of it a week is a little much. If that's all we're doing, what is there to live for? On the flip side, if our loved one lost their spouse recently, they might not feel like there's a lot to live for. What tends to happen with seniors is they go through a lot of loss. So not only are they losing people they love, but they're losing certain abilities, certain things that they love. So my husband's a great example. He's not even a senior yet, but he loved to play hockey and he can't play right now, and that drives him crazy. I know that it does. So when we lose the ability to do things that we love, that does affect our quality of life. And part of what Senior Helpers focuses on is getting to know our clients. What did they used to love to do? And they may not be things I personally love to do. I've got clients who were stay-at-home wives and moms and took care of their family by cooking and doing laundry. I love to cook, but if I never had to do laundry again, I would be okay with that. So instead of doing those things for them, let's engage them in the things that they love to do instead of treating them as if they can't do them. Maybe they can, but just with a little bit of help. And if we look at our clients' individual personalities and build our care plans around things they enjoy, we find that they tend to be more willing to do things like take the medication they didn't really want to take, right? We got to give them a reason.
I think that's awesome.
Right? So that's kind of our approach when we're looking at that.
Now, I would like you to kind of talk about this looks like when, after you've come in, you've done this free assessment, because a lot of people think, oh, they're just going to want there to be their long time. Explain that, because it's important.
Our client who utilizes our service the least has us 2 hours once a week.
Perfect.
Yep, she has one very specific errand that she absolutely must do, and it's something she's done for decades, I would say. And she just doesn't drive, and she's fine being home the rest of the time, and they do grocery delivery, and they have everything else taken care of, but she absolutely has to go out for this, so that's what we do. Our client who utilizes us the most is 24/7. We have every imaginable schedule in between. We have people that utilize us in the nights or the evenings for a couple hours or the mornings, or honestly, anything you can imagine is something that we're able to do. We're matching with a caregiver who's available to do that, and we think would be a good match for that person.
Their phone number, it's 480-360-4141, Valley-wide, 5-star rated everywhere. And they do these free assessments, and the best thing to do for yourself is to have a consultation with them, give them a call, talk down. There's a lot of people out there, like you just mentioned. There are 2 people that have been married for a long time. Now one's sick. They feel obligated in a sense. They want to do it. I know that's from the heart. Duty bound. They want to do it, but you know how hard that can be on that person. Like you said, a lot of them end up in the hospital. I'm talking to you out there that are listening today right now. If you're in that situation, give them a call. I mean, it could just change things and it's a lot easier on you. I remember, and I'm just going to mention my father, when my mother came home she only lasted 4 days, which was lucky for us because he could not do it. He kept on saying, I could do it. So my brother said, okay, go ahead and take care of her. Take her out of that wheelchair and go take care of her. He couldn't lift her, and she only weighed 82 pounds all her life, but it was dead weight now practically. Try and work with that.
Yeah, and I think the other challenge is not only is it sometimes physically demanding, it's emotionally demanding.
Oh.
So there's a whole mortality side to this, right? And so this might affect the spouse, and it might affect the children too. Sometimes if there's folks out there listening and they're thinking, well, my sister won't agree with me that there's anything wrong, right? Sometimes it's not a non-agreement so much as it is part of the grief process, because step 1 in the grief process is denial. So if there's a little denial going on, it means that potentially somebody's in the grief process. And I know that most folks think of grief and they think of death, but oftentimes, you can grieve anything that you lose. Grief is about loss, not about death. So what we really work with families to try and understand that. I'm very proud that all my care managers that work across my organization have at one point or another been a caregiver themselves, either professionally or personally. And we do a lot of training on grief and working through that. And so it's something we're trying to walk that journey with the family.
I want to talk about real quickly what the different ways for funding, because,
Sure.
I have to talk about that.
Sure. So there is a lot of private pay that goes on when you bring in somebody to do these non-medical kind of things. That is part of it. We also work a lot with the VA, and the VA has a very robust book of benefits. They really do. Not just their medical benefits, but there are some of these other community safety kind of benefits, and we fall under that. And so the VA definitely has a couple options of how to assist with the cost. Medicare last year came up, so we're in year 2, came up with a really interesting program called the GUIDE program, GUIDE, and it's a program for dementia care specifically, and so it's a bucket of money for folks who are receiving Medicare on Medicare to use to help get respite care in that situation. And then the last bucket, I would say, is long-term care insurance. Folks do have that. And then there are other non-traditional funding methods. People are doing things like reverse mortgages. I don't know, we don't do any of that stuff.
No.
But these are different things that we've seen people do to try
They
to
have money.
access, to be able to deliver for their family what they want.
Tools.
Tools.
Do you help them with the conversation to know how to even go about, let's say, there's a lot of people that don't even realize that they might even have VA
Sure.
benefits. Do you help them with all of that process?
We do. So during our assessment, the first thing we're going to do is get on the same page about what the needs are. And then those needs are going to drive what a schedule probably should look like. Here's our ideal situation, everything works, this is what we'd like. And then we start to talk about where we might be able to get additional funding. And to be honest, most of the people that utilize us with the VA didn't even know they had the benefit. So
That's good.
they don't go to the VA for their care. This is just something additional.
Right, they just don't know what they don't know. Well, you say it differently. You say you can't fix what you can't face, and I always say you don't know what you don't know. So, but honestly, the best thing to do is to have that consultation. Don't wait till it's too late, right? Let's everybody get on board. Let's try. You have to start with that. And, listen, we were talking a lot about the kids, but there's also, let's say there's no kids involved or their agreement to everything. But the one parent, the one that needs the help, is saying, I don't need your help, I don't need this. That's also a difficult situation.
Maybe we'll touch on that one next time.
So their phone number is 480-360-4141, valley-wide, 5-star rated everywhere. It's seniorhelpers with an S.com.